Michael sat on the edge of the bed. He was enjoying one of his favorite activities, watching his wife of 30 years get ready for an evening of dinner and dancing. This time was different from all the others. As he enjoyed watching her, he was almost overwhelmed with sadness. She was prettier tonight than she'd ever been in all the time he'd known her. He thought Dawn was going to turn 50 tomorrow. They'd planned a family party to celebrate her birthday with her 2 children and their families. This evening was going to be a private celebration just for them, the 2 of them. As she sat at the dressing table, he deliberately looked over her face and body. She's still good, he thought. Gorgeous hair, a beautiful face, and the same trim figure she's worked so hard to maintain over the years. And don't forget that wonderfully shaped ass she teases me with all the time. He felt pride and love for her, but sadness also crept back into his heart. He was a practical guy. He prided himself on his analytical skills. If there was a problem, especially at work, he was the person to go to for an answer. It might not be the quickest answer, but you could rely on the fact that it would be the most logical. It was a logical and well-thought-out answer, but that was why he sat on the edge of the bed in their bedroom and watched with a heavy heart as his wife got ready for the evening. Was this really the last time he'd get to enjoy her doing this? He still loved her with all his heart, body, and soul. What did he do wrong? Why didn't I see this coming in time to do something about it? Am I right? Do I really know her? The question seemed to roll over and over in his head. Then he thought, I know her. He knew that this evening would be the most important crossroads in his life. The turning point would be, for it was going to be a new beginning, or the end of his life as he knew it. He'd been planning this for over 2 weeks, and this evening was the perfect opportunity for the most important conversation of his life with his wife. He'd spent hours trying to figure out how they'd ended up where they were in their marriage. He'd discovered so many things over the past few weeks. As his thoughts became clearer, there were more and more signs that they weren't the couple everyone thought they were. He regretfully listed them carefully in his mind to see if perhaps it felt like he'd missed something or even misunderstood what he'd done for months. I'm not sure exactly when it started. She was distant and distracted, sitting next to me. Looking back, I realized that our love life was slowly but steadily declining. Then there were moments when she overreacted to something. It was minor, but it felt like a big deal at the time. There were also a few instances where she was clearly lying about where she was and who she was with, which was pretty disturbing. Then there was the time she charged my credit card for dinner for 2 at Jolly's restaurant when I knew I wasn't with her. That was a clear signal to me that maybe I wasn't the only one. She was thinking about how the last 2 weeks had been a period where my suspicions became even more real. Almost overnight, she changed. She is now attentive to my every word and need, and now she seems eager to make love at every opportunity. She wants to be the wife and companion she hasn't been. It's been so long, I'm really struggling to understand what happened this time. I just can't get my head around why she changed all those months ago, and I'm still trying to get to grips with why she changed again. It's obvious to me that neither woman is the woman I married and loved all those years ago. Where has this wonderful, caring, loving woman gone? I don't know if I'll ever be able to find the woman I married and loved all those years ago. I don't know what it is about this woman that I don't like, and I don't like either of these 2 women. That's enough. It's time to put this show on tour. I just want to tell you how much I love you. Mike said, You know, Dawn, you're really beautiful. I love you, and I always will. Dawn looked at her reflection in the mirror and said, Thanks, Mike. I don't know why you said that, but I want you to know that I love you just as much. Dawn looked at her husband carefully. She wished she knew what was bothering him so much lately. It seemed like the more she tried to work on their relationship, the more withdrawn and aloof he became. She thought with a mental sigh, I just have to keep trying. She wasn't going to give up on them. She loved him so much and wanted him to love her the same way. Mike muttered quietly, Do you really love me as much as I love you? You've been mumbling a lot the last couple of weeks. Speak up, Michael. In most other circumstances, she would have been amused by his words. However, the shock left her mouth open and her eyes wide with shock. Her voice was filled with resentment as she asked, Why would you say something like that? How could you even think of something like that, let alone say it out loud? We really need to talk, he replied. We have a little time before we leave, and I have something I want to say to you, and some questions. I don't need an answer yet, but I definitely want answers before the night is over. Of course, you can ask me any questions you want. I have no secrets from you because you are my husband, my soulmate. He was so tense that he felt like a wire stretched to its limit. Dawn, I want you to listen to me carefully. I have a number of questions and some statements that I want you to listen to. I don't want any answers right now. I would prefer that you take the time during our I just wanted to say that I'll need time to think over your answers. I know it's a lot to ask, but it's important for me to know the truth. He wants a divorce. I had no idea things could get this bad. Dawn gasped, but she kept her comments to herself, as her husband had asked. Michael carefully, and he went through his questions and statements about his fears that something was seriously wrong with their relationship. First, you basically cut me out of your life for several months. Then, for the past 2 weeks, you've been acting like you're my slave, and you've been trying your hardest to fulfill my every I need to know if there's anything else I should be aware of in our bedroom. You've been moody for months, and it's been hard to know how to handle it. I've been walking on eggshells, waiting for you to explode. You've lied to me more than once about where you've been and who you've been with. I think the final straw in this marriage was when you paid for dinner for 2. I wasn't with you then, so I'm wondering where this is going. I think you're having an affair. I think your affair recently ended, and you think you can jump from his bed back into mine. So, I have a few questions for you. Dawn wanted to know if Michael wanted a divorce, if she was the only woman he loved, how many times she'd cheated on him, and with how many guys. She also wanted to know if he wanted to stay married to her, and if so, whether he'd continue cheating. Finally, she asked him to give her reasons to stay married to him. She was showing incredible restraint. Michael was putting a lot of pressure on her. Dawn wasn't showing control, she was just at a loss for words. Michael stood up and said, "Dawn, finish getting ready, and I'll meet you downstairs. We have to hurry or we'll be late for dinner." She was able to finish her preparations somehow, and meet Michael downstairs. Somehow, she made it through the evening. After Michael reminded her that he didn't want to discuss his charges any further for the rest of their evening, she was able to enjoy the time she had with her husband. She had indeed had too much to drink, and by the time she got home, she was ready for bed. She was mentally exhausted, and, after drinking, she knew she wasn't in the right state to have a conversation with her husband. She complained of fatigue and a headache, and quickly changed into her nightgown and climbed into bed. Luckily, she fell asleep almost immediately. Michael decided to put off the discussion until morning and, without wasting any time, went to bed. He was surprised to find he was able to fall asleep quickly and sleep soundly all night. The next morning, Michael got up first, took a shower, went to the kitchen and started making breakfast. He started making coffee first, as he knew from years of experience that Dawn would come in soon as she almost always did. When she came in, he was sitting at the table. "Can I get you a cup of coffee? Do you want some toast or something?" "Yeah, thanks. I'd love a coffee, Michael. Thanks for the offer. But I don't think my stomach's ready for anything yet. Last night, with everything that was said and done, and with alcohol on top, my stomach would rather do without breakfast. Dawn, last night it was my turn to put all this stuff on the table, where we can really figure out where we're. I'm going to let you have the floor to tell us what's what." "Michael, I've been thinking a lot about what you said last night. I heard you when you said how important it is for me to be truthful and to speak clearly in my answers. First, I want you to know, I want to tell you that you are the only man I have ever loved, and that you are the only man I have ever slept with since our wedding day. I'll try to tell you in the same order you asked, as far back as I can remember. I never wanted a divorce from you. There is no other person in the background, so I can easily say that I don't love this person who doesn't exist. I have never cheated. I've been with you since we got married, so there's no one else I've slept with to tell you about. I want to stay married to you forever, and I'll stay faithful to you until death do us part. That credit card charge was just a business dinner that you either forgot about or I forgot to mention to you. The only reason you'd want to stay married to me is because you love me. I married you because I love you. I love you with all my heart, body, and soul. I take responsibility for being away from you for so long. I also take responsibility for being away from you. I believe we both went through a dry spell in our marriage and just didn't realize it at the time. Lately, I've started to realize again why I love you. For the past 2 weeks, I was trying to show you how much I care. I thought that if I showed you how much I love you, it would help to get our relationship back on track." Michael looked up at Dawn and then at his wife. He looked at them both, and he didn't flinch from their gazes. "Michael, you should know that I love you, and only you." Michael kept looking at his wife, and then his face changed. Michael's expression grew more and more sad and lost until he looked like he was going to die. "Dawn, what's wrong? Are you sick?" Mike's voice grew stronger, and it was easier to hear the note of anger in it. He said, "I gave you every opportunity because I really wanted to stay married to you for the rest of our lives. I'm sure I did everything I could to save our marriage, and I know you didn't do your part." He handed her a manila envelope and said, "I still love you, but love is not enough. I don't want to be your husband anymore. I've filed for divorce. You need a lawyer. I don't want to see you or talk to you ever again. I'm going to pack some things and I'll be leaving soon. I have to say I'm sorry, but since I don't believe you're sorry, I don't see any reason to think otherwise. You made your bed, and now you'll have to sleep in it without me forever." Michael slowly got up and went straight upstairs, where he began gathering his clothes and toiletries. He had already gotten a hotel room and, on the advice of his attorney, had made all the necessary financial arrangements to begin separating himself from his soon-to-be ex. Dawn, Michael's wife, was in shock. She was so taken aback by his words and actions that she was frozen in place. She sat at the kitchen table while Michael packed his things. When he left, she sat there for almost an hour, still motionless. Finally, she managed to get up and she opened the dreaded envelope and pulled out papers that clearly spelled out the end of her life with Michael. Why didn't he believe me? Why did he think such a terrible thing about me? I know we can work this out, but he didn't even give us a chance. Dawn looked at the paper without reading it. Then she noticed that something was still in the envelope. It looked like a photograph, so she tugged and pulled it out. It was a picture of her having sex with another man. The photo clearly showed that she was on the marital bed in her own home. The photo also clearly showed that the man was not Michael. She screamed. She realized that Michael knew about her affair with Phil. She thought that he would believe her. She ended the affair and tried to repair the damage to her marriage and her husband's trust in her. She didn't realize then, as she does now, that the only way to save her marriage was to be honest. She knew that the only way to save her marriage was to be completely honest. She hadn't been very honest with her husband, so this was a big challenge for her. The hardest part was that her husband had left and wasn't coming back. She was sure that Michael would keep. She was convinced that his word and the divorce were the only solutions he would accept. She was also sure that she had truly lost the only man she had ever truly loved. The final sad fact was that the affair, with all its wonderful sex, had not been worth a single moment of the time she had spent with her husband. She was reminded of her vows at their beautiful wedding, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others. It was the final blow, the final arrow that had plunged into her heart and finally delivered some of the pain her husband had been experiencing these past weeks. This pain couldn't compare to his, but it was the worst pain she'd ever felt. She knew she'd been unfaithful. She'd cheated on her husband, their children, and their entire family. She'd be a cheat now and for the rest of her life. Her whole family saw her as nothing but a cheat. Subscribe to my channel. Thanks.